As a type of person who needs some sort of structure and boundaries in order to make stuff properly, I've actually found that setting some restrictions can teach me a few things about photography. It's kind of like writing a song on a keyboard with infinite keys. It's impossible to know which note to pick first, and when you do start, you'll probably end up with prog rock. But give yourself some boundaries, and it's probably easier to imagine something in between them. When I managed to get the plastic Nikon 40mm f2 for a good price, I thought, I don't know about this length, so I thought I'd give myself a 40-day challenge to see whether I did like it. And you can see whether I did or not in the video up here somewhere. So when I recently picked up the Nikon Zf, I also picked up a rather well-priced 28mm f2.8, also in plastic. And again, that's a length I did not know whether I'd be liking or not. So I decided to set myself another challenge, and obviously a 28-day challenge this time. If the 35mm lens length is sort of the Toyota Corolla, you know, that kind of gets the job done lens length, then I guess the 28mm is sort of like a Corolla with a spoiler. Theoretically, there should be a bit more performance, but is it going to be so much that you notice? I mean, it's a bit wide, but not so wide that you can really get up close to things and still have them in frame. And it's also a little bit slower than the 40mm. I'm not going to lie, having a Nikon Zf now, I'm looking to capture some of that hipster carry everywhere film-like setup, and perhaps the 28mm was the sort of lens length that I can do that with. It's light, it's small, and if I remove the grip from the ZF, then it's kind of pocketable. It's not pocketable. It's not even close to being pocketable. But it's unobtrusive. It's narrow. So anyway, the first thing to do was to jump on my bike, ride up and down the Gold Coast like I do almost every day, and see what pictures I could get. Let's have a look.
So first up is this shot of the Langham Hotel in the Gold Coast. It's slightly corrected vertically. You can see some kind of messy sun stars. That's what we're dealing with this lens. It's not a super precise lens. It's full of elements, but overall pretty good detail. This is in 1/8 of a second, so using the bike as a stabilizer. A lot of these shots, because I'm trying to do them daily, I'm just snapping them from my bike as I ride past things. These showers and this lifeguard hut. And these reporters, that's why they're kind of not perfectly framed. But as you can see, it's kind of nice. This is these are 35mm shots, you know, meh length rather than artistic. This is Telebudgera Creek down in Palm Beach, down the southern end of the Gold Coast. The water is not actually massively enhanced here, and with the color, it really is that clear and blue. It's just doesn't flare too much considering the amount of sunlight hitting it from the water. These next shots are at about ISO 1250 at a 60th of a second. It's quite a dark mirror maze in a center, and you can see from the blur on my son's foot there that it's shot in the dark. Here's an example of being close to something, making it look big but not gargantuan. I was able to get really close to this pelican he looks 6 foot tall there. He's probably about 4 foot, but I'm crouching. And then this shot of my son, again, I kind of wish this was an ultra wide because it would look really good with exaggerated proportions, but again, getting close to the 28 just gives you a bit more background and a little bit of the foreshortening, but not too much. Some other examples from Brunswick Heads using f5.6 and some relatively deep focus. Here you can see what the sun is doing to flares, and one aspect of shooting these things every day is that sometimes you go the whole day and you haven't shot anything, so you go out and shoot the restaurant across the street. You can probably guess that this has been pretty heavily noise reduced. And this shot is also noise reduced, ISO 10,000 at 125th. I probably could have stopped down a little bit more, but it was raining hard, so I was just trying to get things done quickly. I still quite like how this shot came out. And then this shot didn't quite come out, but it would have been good if I had shot it faster than a 60th. But this pizza delivery guy pulling out of the rain in this bus stop had a nice look to it, but it's just too shaky. Next night, it's not raining quite as much. This is my electric bike that I've already described riding around on. It's nice to be able to see the effect of the background bokeh behind the bike. Looks nice. They're relatively clean balls. We love clean balls. There's entire industries set up for clean balls. Next evening, hunting around for a shot, came across this perfectly bleak, nicely lit phone box with a carefully discarded shopping cart next to it. It's my favourite shot of the bunch, to be honest. It doesn't get better. You can stop now. I only wish that this wasn't my own neighbourhood. Again, writing. I need to stop saying that, but I was getting followed by this peacock. This kind of came out pretty nice considering it was just hip shot. You know, there is a little bit of distortion that creates some exaggerated looks to it. This is a giant sculpture. Hopefully it looks as much. Alright, and then the next day, this is I'm at Dreamworld, the theme park, and this is a flight attraction where some kids are on these wings rotating and they flew over my head. I actually really like how this shot came out. Following day had been raining, so I managed to get out just as this rainbow formed across what they call the Broadwater here, which is like a channel of water between a spit of sand in front of it that you can see where the rainbow's hitting. Pretty enhanced to get the color out of the rainbow, but that was the best shot I got that day. I know it's not great. Again, here I am skulking around at night trying to find compositions. The best I could find was this empty forecourt at an all-night kebab drive-through. And yes, in Australia we have all-night kebab drive-throughs. What of it?
In case you're in any doubt as to how I'm doing all these photos every day, it's just me riding around on my bike around this empty city, taking photos of car parks and stuff. Basically car parks. From the exterior, it's quite sad.
Again, riding around the Gold Coast looking for compositions, and found I really liked the contrast of this parking garage with the warm lights in the foreground and the cool lights in the background. Creates some nice contrast. This sort of at least tells a little bit of a story. Makes you feel kind of listless and lost. I kind of like how these came out. Actually, I'm really happy with these, and you can see they're not particularly distorted or corrected. Next night, I made a composite of two images to create this ultra wide. They went together pretty well. As you can see, messy stunt stars in the background. Relatively good corner sharpness considering these were made from exposures of 8 seconds while sitting on a log. Again on the ride, ISO 4000, 160th, so not too much brought out there. Really good detail, as you can see. Pretty sharp through the frame at f4. This is shot through a dirty window. I did this one to shoot the bokeh balls. We had some sun coming through after some rain. As you can see, the bokeh balls are kind of messy and dirty, but not unpleasing. But the diffusion here is from a dirty window with dust on it, which is why it looks unsharp here. It's not the lens. Here's a portrait. I know 28mm is not a portrait lens. As you can see, it gives you kind of a pear shape to your body. This is my father here, but as you can see, the details are really good and sharp. Following day, this is all I managed to get. This is one of the most boring photos of the set. Unfortunately not the most boring, but I like these trees. Oh, and it gets even worse. Again, I couldn't think of any compositions, so I went and did a long exposure of this empty lot. Not a long exposure, but it's ISO 12800. It's using the Lightroom AI denoise, and it's at a 50th of a second. This is just a lot that is now being completely bulldozed. I kind of thought it had an eeriness to it. These shots are, I actually had a portrait shoot that day and put the 28mm on just to get some shots of the environment. The thing I thought was interesting here is that someone was smoking something on a barbecue, and it created these interesting light patterns through the trees. And you can see how they affect the lens. Yeah, overall I thought it looked pretty good. There's a shot of the Coast Guard boats at rest when everything is completely dark in the background. It's kind of a cool effect. This is the same blue water from before, minorly color corrected from green, but and stretched a little bit. But as you can see, the water is crystal clear underneath it. This is the Telebudgera bridge that appeared at the start of the sequence. Yeah, there's light shining onto the water, giving it more transparency. Probably lots of fish in there if you look, other than the leaves. This was the only shot I got that day because I was traveling to another shoot in Lismore outside of the Gold Coast, and just had time to get a misty moon misty full moon and the sky through these palm trees before the day was over. So this one definitely is what it is. I feel like I'm getting tired towards the end. And this truck stop, I am definitely tired. I've had a full day's shooting where I didn't use the 28mm. I used almost every other lens I own instead, and then hadn't shot anything on the 28mm, so I grabbed this gas station because, let's face it, if you've got a hipster camera, a gas station is always an acceptable subject. The next day was the second day of a shoot I had on Lismore. This was actually one of the ones I did submit. I really liked how this one came out. Sunrise coming through, there's the dam visible in the background, creating this sort of beckoning light through the trees. The Sunstar kind of works here even though it's messy. And as you can see, the sharpness of the lens is really nice, comes through the frame. I'm happy with this one. And I had a model, which is helpful. Then, exhausted from said shoot, I had travelled back to Gold Coast and just looking around for compositions. Here's one in the China/Korea/town of Southport. These welcome banners here. This is me scraping the bottle on the barrel on the second to last day, and all I found this day to shoot was this nice light pattern through the window. This is bullshit, this shot, and I apologize. And then finally, the last day, this is lit with a gridded softbox, the same one that I used to shoot these videos. And here I am with my son posing beautifully. And I guess this can sort of show just how sharp the lens is when everything's properly lit and on a tripod, so it's nice and sharp. The sharpness is insane. Is a more than adequately sharp lens, I guess is what I'm saying. And no one should ever say this is at f5.6. ISO 400 and at 50th because I was clearly using it to shoot video as well. That's the end of the sequence, apart from this one blurry one that I thought I'd put on just because I kind of think it's funny. I think it sums up my son's personalities pretty well and my reaction to them. Yeah, that was 28 photos in 28 days. Well, more than 28 photos. That was 28 days worth of photos with the 28mm. Let's head back to myself in the studio to wrap up.
So at the end of my journey to see if the Nikon Zf, this 28mm f2.8 can match up to the impossible dream of owning a Fuji X100 Mark VI and having that sort of hipster carry every day set up. I mean, even if you just put the two cameras side by side, you can see it's not really close in terms of the experience. They're hilariously different in size and weight. It's kind of like a footballer showing up at a primary school looking for a kick around, you know. It does different things. However, in my opinion, it still does it better, so it's worth the extra. And also it's still an easy carry because once you take the grip off, it's a better carry than the Z6 because that giant grip being gone means it's a bit more narrow and a bit more unobtrusive and you can just put it in more places. Why does that sound that way? In terms of the challenge, that was always going to be tough. I'm new here, I don't know all the places, and there's just less stuff on the Gold Coast than Sydney. You know, that was a bit of a challenge. And certainly you can probably see some of the days, more of the days than the 40mm I straight up had nothing. So how do I feel about the 28mm as a length compared to the 40mm? Not that excited, and particularly this lens, even though it's only a stop slower, I definitely felt that at 2.8 when it was wide open. It made a big difference, even though it's only a stop. Maybe it's in my mind. On the plus side, I was able to use the 28mm to make some content for a aforementioned day job, simply because its length replicates that of an iPhone. I could just turn the camera on its side and film some content and not offend the sensibilities of people who get upset if they see anything made with anything better than an iPhone. So it worked for that. So yeah, basically I feel like the 28mm is just like a 35 with just that little bit of stretch, you know, gives a little bit of extra perspective, but all the time I was putting the lens up close to things and just wishing I had the drama of an ultra-wide lens to give it that little bit of something. And yeah, let's face it, for a photographer of my skill to use that level of drama as a crutch, I find it hard to shoot this lens, and yeah, so I don't know if it really quite worked for me. But on the plus side, the lens itself, the advantages are that because it's got that plastic kind of chintzy sort of light feel, it is the sort of lens that on the principles of EDC is still the same. You don't feel bad putting it in your bag. It's got that light so that you don't feel like you're going to baby it. Much like for the Sony, for the Samyang light primes. You know, just chuck them in there. Use it like a lens cap. As for me, will I use this lens over the 40mm as my EDC?